Marriage. Ooh. Hi, sister.
We got some energy today. Wow, we're pretty excited. We're pretty excited for today's episode. So, if you tuned in last week, you know we're doing another one of our bundled series that we love to do. And this one, we're really, it's like we're so thrilled to bring you this series all around sister wounds. And this is part two of this 6-part series that you can dive into all in a row or as you see fit, tuning in and finding yourself with the speakers and the guests that we're going to have on that are going to be in total alignment with you. So today we have some really special women, and I want to introduce them quickly. Stacey's so excited. We're so excited. We are so excited. I should have hit record before because we were like having a whole ceremony. So we are joined today by Neryeda Martinez. This beautiful, gorgeous woman is a mother, storyteller. She's also a licensed Ishtara teacher. This is where Stacey and I had the joy of meeting this just glorious visionary leader. She's a big time mama advocate. So for all of you moms out there, this is your go-to. Her and her husband run the Healing Tree Collective in Arizona. There's so much more to get into, but welcome in, sister. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. And we have Michelle Witherspoon. I'm so delighted to finally get to meet this woman because I've heard so much about her from Stacey because they know each other back in the corporate days of Cisco and all things Michelle. She's diversity, equity, inclusion, all things DEI. She really cares deeply about harnessing the synergy of people, business strategies, and just overcoming any like traditional norms, right, to foster growth. And she's also a mom, she's a wife, and she is big time advocate for multiple sclerosis as she has been navigating life with this since 2002. And we are so excited to have you in. Hello, sister.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here, like Nereyda. Thank you for allowing me to join you two today.
Well, we're going in, and there's so much that can come forward, I think, when we hear the words sister wounds, whether it's like actual blood sister, blood relative, you have sisters. I was not blessed with any sisters, and I know Stacey was not either with any like blood sisters. So for me, the sister wounding happened a lot in friendships, basketball, corporate, athletics, things of that nature. And so I'm just interested to hear, I guess, from each of you, like when you hear sister wounds, we'll open it up with like, what does that mean for you? Nereyda, I feel like you want to kick it off. What do you feel?
All right, let's kick it off. Well, that's funny because I have 4 blood sisters.
Mm.
Yeah, sisters for everyone. I started hearing sister wound when I started to venture into spirituality and gaining or joining, I should say, joining these. Actually, it happened more so in the pandemic because everything was online, right? And so I was alone and I saw there was things that would come up on like my Instagram and stuff like that. And so there would be these gatherings or these communities of women. And so I just started joining whatever I felt like aligned, basically, or whatever was drawing me in. And that's when I started to first learn about sisterhood because I had no idea what that was. And I feel there's been layers to that, over the years, understanding and learning what that means. Because it's so, we can be so quick to be like, no, I'm fine. Or like, no, but then it's like when I started to realize, actually, I should say, when I started to open myself up to have friendships with women, that's when I realized, ooh, there's the wounds, because there was a lot of like holding back, right? No, I'm not going to get too close. I'm still going to protect myself because of previous experiences. And yes, I had, with friends, usually it has to do with like boys, right? Wounds like in that way. And then it wasn't until after I started to do all that work, started to open up to my sister friendships, that I realized, oh, I also have sister wounds with my blood sisters. And that was like a whole different kind of sister wounding that I, at no fault at all to my parents, because they didn't know, we only know what we know, right? But we weren't really ever told or taught how to treat each other as sisters, right? So it felt very much like, oh, kind of like we're the enemy, like you're, what did you get? What did I get? Or like, it really all came from just us really seeking love, right? But we were seeking love from our parents and not getting that. So then it felt like it was a competition. Does that make sense? So that was very interesting. And as I've obviously expanded my own heart and my capacity to understand and love my blood sisters and my sister friends, my other sisters, it's really just having that empathy, and understanding that we're just all trying to figure that out. But yeah. So it's been an interesting journey understanding what sister wounds means to me.
When you said that, Nereyda, I was thinking, as when Jill and Stacey said it, I was like, what? How do I interpret sister wound? Because originally I have one biological sister and I have a stepsister that I don't speak to. Because when my dad died, she sued us. That's a whole other story, another podcast. But when I really thought about it, I started to think about how, from a corporate lens, actually, and I was thinking through the wound as aligned to like lack of distrust, pettiness, fear that there's only so many positions for women at this level. Whether we say that out loud or not, we all know that's true, right? And then when you get higher, like then as you're a woman of color, that means something else. And so like there may only be like one position there, and then there's this cattiness and fighting and disloyalty. And so even though we don't really say sisters in the corporate environment, we still treat people through that lens of like, okay, I'm going to build some sense of reliability with you, authenticity, and a sense of trust. But what happens is when you think about the wounds we think about in corporate, like it's very rare that I would call anybody a friend in corporate. I mean, before, as Jill was saying, before she hit record, we were talking about how Stacey and I have known each other back in the day. I don't know, probably 15 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And you just don't develop those type of corporate trust relationships. I think in my career, I probably have less than 5 in my 35, 40 year plus career journey at this point. Right. And so when I think about those wounds tend to be, how do I say this? Those wounds tend to me heal quickly because I don't want to go too deep, because you don't really have an impact on my life. Right. And so, but when I think about the other type of, when you think sisters, I think about my tribe of friends. So I'm really, really picky about who I allow in my inner circle and that tribe of friends. And they all have different levels. Everybody's not equal. Everybody's not equal sisters. Right. So you have some people you tell more things to than others. But when I think about that wound of how it would really bother me if there's a lack of trust there, there's a lack of fear. I mean, fear there that I couldn't lean into them or lean on them when I need to be. That's what it feels like to me. And so I put them in different categories, and so, and interesting already, you say, I have a really interesting relationship with my parents. I think through lots of therapy at this point. They did the best they knew how to do at the time in which they were raising us, my sister and I. And so there's no fault. I've learned along the ways that, they just were the best parents. My dad recently passed away, but with my mom, my sister and I have very different relationship with her. I was put very early on to be the mother of the house. And so I've raised my since I was like 14, 15. And I think my mom and I have a different relationship with that. So even though she's my mother, it almost feels a little bit like she's my sister.
Wow.
Even though, because she looks to me to make decisions for her even to this day. And she's 81.
Oh,
That's my overall definition. All right. I'll go about it.
yeah. Yeah. There's so much. I love what both of you brought up here is that shining a light on sister wounds in one area had you go look at some other areas and go, oh, there's some wounding there. And I get to address it in a way that feels good for me right now. And there are certain wounds, like all of them have layers, right? But there are certain wounds that are going to affect me more. And this message that sisterhood is not equal feels like a huge paradigm shift that I quite frankly love, because we do, especially in what the world would call like my woo-woo world I live in. It's like sisterhood. Everyone's my sisterhood. And it's like, yeah, girl, I just met you. How is there that deep level of trust when we just met? I don't know where you're coming from with your sister wounds. You don't know where I'm coming from. We get to build that. We get to develop that. So yeah, if you hurt me and we just met, it is going to hit me differently than someone I've built that trust with. Because that for me, and we've talked about this before, Jill, you and I, that is betrayal. And that's a whole different kind of sister wound than you did me dirty, you did me wrong, or you mistreated me, or whatever it is. That betrayal wound between sisters is, whew. And I don't have biological sisters. I have no biological siblings. But witnessing my friends deal with biological sisters and that kind of betrayal and wounding, yeah, I learned to be very guarded. As if they'll do that to their blood, there's no telling what they'll do to someone who's not. And so, yeah, I entered into sisterhood expecting the wounding. And I did make it equal. Like every single one of you will wound me. It's all equal. And so I'm not letting you in. I've always had more male friends than female friends. Like it just was that thing. And in my own evolution and awakening to better things in life, yeah, I love the reminder that it's not equal and it's okay.
Stacey, it's interesting you say that because I think the acknowledgement of that helps to heal the wound. Right. So what I mean by that is that I think you said something a minute ago, like when somebody said, "Oh, I'm your friend." Like I wonder, about maybe 5 years ago. No, it's probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was diagnosed with depression, right? And I hid it. I didn't even know I was hiding it because I didn't feel like I was depressed because I'm type A personality. Go with it. I'm living in the house with my husband that they didn't even know, and I watched this commercial of that lady who puts that little circle up in front of her face.
Yeah, the
Right.
mask. Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's me. I need to call like the employee assistance program or something, right? EAP. Anyway, I say that because through that, lots of times I realized that there were so many wounds there that where people would say I was their friend or I was their best friend, but I didn't see them in the same way. And so I think we first have to acknowledge that everybody's not equal. And I also think we have to acknowledge that it's okay to say, I need to heal from this. Right. And it taught me a lot going through that therapy of like really acknowledging, like, everybody doesn't have to be in the same bucket. I
Yeah.
I can put down some of these weapons that I'm using to say, why do I connect with Stacey over Jill more? And why do I feel bad about that? Or why do I connect with Nereyda over, why do I feel bad that they're all not in the same? And I think because we're raised somewhat, especially as women, that treat everybody the same, everybody gets it, but that is just bullshit, right? Like everybody doesn't get the same sense of connection to your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing too is this interesting dynamic of like buckets. Like those that you meet at work will be in a different bucket than if you are in the spiritual realm and you've attended retreats or you've chosen to do personal development. And this is my lens, right? And so I'll be interested to hear everyone else's is like, clearly I have the skin that I'm in. I'm a white woman. And so when I have gone to anything personal development or a group of women, sisterhood retreat, I automatically do show up with an open heart and trusting, and will be in the space of, you're my sister. And I will hold my heart in that space until proven otherwise. I don't think I have done that in the corporate world that I've navigated. I definitely show up with a like, I'm really reading. I'm reading the energy, I'm reading the body, I'm reading the language, I'm reading the vibration of how they're speaking. And I want to bring this up because, Stacey, we've had so much dialogue, and this is how we have become the deep level of, truly, when I say sister, because we can navigate these conversations of like, that's not been your experience wrapped in black skin. And so let's just like go there, because I think, and Nereyda would love to hear your perspective, because this is just truth. It's like just the truth of different lenses when we walk into spaces.
100%.
Right now that you said that, so there was two thoughts coming in. One really quick, back to what Michelle and Jill, you were talking to about like the buckets and stuff. I had just had a conversation with my son where I said, you get to choose your friends, because there were some friends that weren't being so kind, and he had made those friends because there was another group of friends that he used to play with, but he was feeling a little secluded. And I said, you know, you get to choose how people treat you. You get to choose who you want to be around, how they make you feel. And so it was a good reflection for me too, right? That I've made these choices now I have. So going back to your point, Michelle, I think it was the whole people pleasing. You want to be friends with everybody, you know, all this, keep the peace, but we really do have that choice. So I wanted to say that real quick, because I thought it was so beautiful that I was making this full circle with my son. But to your last point, Jill, I literally had this moment, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but right now time feels like I don't know what is time. So it was recently, though. It was in 2024 that I've been a part of this group of moms. This is now my 3rd year being in it. And we had like a sleepover type gathering to celebrate the end of this last year. And when I was there, I felt fully comfortable, where I had before, like I clearly would open up. I'm a very open person, you know, I love being around them. But this felt like a deeper layer of comfort and safety. And on the day that we were leaving, right, because we were there for 2 days, I shared very openly. I said, this is the first time I have felt this safe being around so many white women. For me, that was huge, because there has always been so much of this, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough because I'm Mexican, right? That there was like all these stories, and not really maybe getting to like 98% feeling safe, right? But there's still that 2% that I'm, you know, I still gotta protect myself, right? So yeah, it was wild for many reasons that this just came out through me, and I felt so it felt like a gift, right? To be able to feel so safe, for me and my ancestors, right? To feel so safe, but also to share with other women that this is how I've been feeling, but nobody knew. Right? Nobody knew. This whole time, nobody knew. And so I had many moms come to me and said, you know, I had no idea. And that's really what it is, right? Is this awareness? Because why do I have to hold it all in and pretend like I'm fine and we're all great? And when a lot of these women it's never even crossed their mind, you know, that they might not feel as safe because
They're
if I was
white.
white, or they were white. Right. So
Also, yeah.
vice versa.
I mean,
It
this
was like,
is true.
yeah,
Mhm.
there was that extra layer that wasn't known. So anyway, it was wild for me because even though I knew it, right? I felt it. But to get to that point of just this free flow of expression to come out and to share that with everybody else, that was a whole other layer
Can I
that
ask a
nobody knew about.
question?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
feel safe in that environment? Because when I think about sister rooms, the only way to get past it is to acknowledge the isolation that you felt as a, so here's the thing. I'm part of a group here called Let's Talk, where we bring together diverse women to have really hard conversations, diversity in ethnicity, but in age and social economics, like really truly diverse and political points of view. So we can really start to understand. And some of the white women may have chosen not to come back because their point of view wasn't the majority in the room. Right. And so what made you feel so comfortable in an environment that you were in? Was it that the kids were there, so you felt like everybody had some type of tie around relationship? Is it that somebody opened up enough that you allowed you to breathe through that? Or did you just feel accepted?
Yeah, I think it was the last one, accepted. So this was actually no partners or kids were there. It was just all the moms gathering there for a sleepover, and I knew a lot of the moms on different levels, right? We got different levels of connections, right? But I mean, I stayed there the whole day, the night, and I really did feel, yeah, I think that's a perfect word, accepted, and didn't feel, I didn't feel different. I didn't feel different because, this is a great question because I'm trying to put into words what I was feeling. I think for so long there was, and whether I recognized it or not, right? Being in this country, even though I was born in this country, right? It always kind of felt like you kind of have to fight to like belong here, because what if the cops take you? Like, what if you're out of here? You don't really belong here,
Yeah.
And so obviously these fears, right, passed down. And so when you're not like me and you don't know that that's a fear, then I have to put a bit of a wall up. But in that time that we were all together, I felt like we were all little girls. Like we were all little girls having a good time together, and those fears didn't matter. So I felt safe as a little girl, as an adult in that space. And I looked around, and I mean, there was only one of me, like there was only one. I should say, in that moment, there was two of us, two women of color, but out of a big group of women.
Yeah.
So
you felt community, like
I felt community. Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing to point out for every one of you that's tuning in and listening here is, Nereyda, you've been in this community for 3 years. So it's like, this is year 3. And I just want to offer for anyone out there listening, like, this might get to be your moment to have a big time perspective shift when you show up. When you show up to, and I'm speaking to my fellow white women that are out there, right? Like, allow this to be a lens shift. Because I would desire that it doesn't take 3 years. And also, like, I'm so excited that your body was able to feel safe enough to get to have that like comfort in sisterhood.
Yeah. That's beautiful. There's, Nereyda, something that you brought up. Y'all know I'm working on my dissertation, so I'm always like, that's always at the forefront. Like, there is so much proof to substantiate that fear, that othering. Like, it's all out there. And when we live in this world, particularly in this country, where whiteness is the default, it is the norm, it is the baseline. And then for women, white women are considered the baseline for femininity. Anything outside of that is othered. Anything outside of that is different. And not only we feel different, we are made different by policy, practice, interactions, all the things, right? And I, Jill and I talk about this all the time. I travel in so many circles where I am the only one or one of the few. The assumption is that I must feel safe in order to be here. And that's far from the truth. It is not that I feel safe and that's why I'm there. That is not it. I show up in the spaces I show up because there's something there for me. The safety gets built. The trust gets built. The unraveling for me of the assumed wounding that's coming, like it's coming for me, it's coming. Like I get to unravel that and I get to see like who you are. Like I want to see your soul. I want to see your heart. Like I have, to this day, I will still consider her my sister, and other people will be pissed off at me. I hear all of my Black sister girls like, yo, we taking your Black card back, like with what I'm about to say. We got separated because of some political dynamics. Long before I knew anything about where she stood on anything, all this kind of stuff. Actually, we stood in the same place at that time. It was one of those instant things. Like we saw each other, we met, and it was like, oh, my soul knows you. Like we've known each other for ancient years. Like we just know. And it's like, dang, this feels good. And it was at a time where I was very isolated and completely alone and didn't have any friends where I was living, didn't know anybody, right? And so this was good. We had this deep, beautiful connection. And then she said to me, I have a confession to make. I'm like, here it comes. Here comes the white woman wounding of me when I have opened and been vulnerable. What is she going to say? What is she going to do? Because we had already had many difficult conversations, but we had already had the conversation like, I don't need you just seeing me as your sister and as your friend. I need you to see me as a Black woman. You have to see all of me. You have to. Otherwise, we're never going to be close enough. Like you have to. So I was like, well, what could it be? Because it's not that. We did that. And she went on to talk about something she was going to do following suit with what her husband wanted for their household politically. And it hurt. It hurt like hell because I was not expecting that. Of all the things she could have shared with me, I was not expecting that. And to know that it wasn't even hers. Like this was her husband's. It wasn't her mother's. It wasn't her sister's. It wasn't her. Like it wasn't even hers. But because of her devotion to her husband at the time, she felt the need to carry this forward. I love that she wanted me to find out this way instead of some other kind of way. But that's when we got to have that question and saying, oh, so when whiteness is the default and white women is the default for femininity, you're completely sacrificing who you are. You've got the privilege of being the default, and you're sacrificing that to be subservient to what someone else wants. And you know it hurts me, and it hurts every single person like me. And you're still going to do it. She still did it and did some other stuff too. And like it hurt. Like it hurts me now that we are not as close. I still love her. I'll always love her. I'll always have a special place for her. But that kind of wounding where she acknowledged, I'm going with the default because that's the way it was phrased. My husband says, this is what white people do. And so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, damn, what? Huh.
You know, Stacey, I have the exact same story. Like we could just switch names.
Huh.
I will say I didn't want to be surprised, but historical context told me not to be too there. This is someone that's been I would say probably 30 something years, right? And it's painful because you're being complicit. Your silence of not standing up for what you say you want to be. And that's why I was asking you, Nereyda, like, what did you really feel in the room? Because that complicity and then just how we are with like, do you realize that things are going to affect me as a Black person, not only just in personal environments, but in corporate environments? Do you see how far some of your choices are that you're making for the majority that benefits you? Do you see how much it's going to hurt a particular race or a particular subset of race? And so, but the thing that hurt most was not that ability to speak through it. And Brene Brown, I'm going to really mess this quote out, but the premise of the quote is, shame comes from not speaking about stuff, right?
Yeah.
I know that's not the quote, so all Brene Brown lovers give me grace of that. But I always think about that. Like, is there something there going on? And so the history and the complexity of women, particularly white women, saying, and like we see, just like Google anything at any time. The woman that the guy was watching birds and she was freaking out, yelling, and it's like, I'm right here. I think that correlates over into other environments as well. And so for women, all women, regardless of color, but particularly women of color, Asian women, Black women, brown women, I think we do have to think through, like, what do these wounds look like in corporate America? Right? To this day, I tell my kids, I have a daughter that's going to be 26, a son that's 33. I still tell them to this day, this hasn't changed. If everybody I mentor, you still have to work harder then, right? You still do. I know my parents told me that when I went into the workforce. I'm still telling my kids that. Like, think about this. In North America, we still say this, right? We still say, and there's no covering for me. My dad's parents are French and German. My mom is Black. You look at my skin, there's no way I can come through at any level and go, yeah, but the other side of my family looks different. So will you accept me based just off of skin color? No. I still have to work harder, show up harder, and present myself in the way that is comparable to men and comparable to women in the majority. Right. And so those wounds are still deep. And when people, I've been in this space of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, they keep changing the acronyms. We're under attack right now. Our democracy is totally at stake. If you don't believe it, just Google it, whatever your point of view is. Like, for people to tell you you can't do something in today's environment, it's really scary, right? And so as a woman, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm very nervous, right? How do I continue to keep healing these wounds that I see spreading? Like, I see it spreading every day, right? To make sure that people show up and go, your decisions are impacting me how I show up. My kids are going to be affected by some of these decisions. So can we have some open conversation? And so back to you, Nereyda, so I was like, how did you feel in that room that gave you that sense of like, I can breathe here and share my full self? Right. And I think that's powerful. I think it's so powerful. And I'm glad Jill said you've been part of that group for 3 years. Because I was like, a weekend, girl, 1 weekend, you felt that comfortable?
No.
Years.
Years.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about how long.
Yeah.
Years.
Oof.
So much in all of this.
I know.
We please comment below, y'all, anything that's coming through for you, because this is just the beginning. We're gonna be back next week with these same two gorgeous women, and we're going to continue this dialogue around sister wounds. And I think today you had a real beautiful opportunity to switch your lens or perspective, and or open up some you're not alone with some other sisters that may have your similar skin color of like, oh damn, yep. Like, there's some relativity here for sure, and how we get to create safety for everyone inside of sisterhood and whatever that means for you. So thank you, ladies, for being with us today. And and we will see you all next week. Same time, same place, 11 a.m. every Wednesday.
Love you.